My name is Mark Goetz. I'm the president and CEO and co-founder of Home Care Advocacy Network. We're also helping make a more age-ready USA, which we're very proud of. Today, I want to share with you what senior living gets wrong about home care, and this is from many years of experience. If you're a senior living executive, I want to challenge you on something very kindly. I think senior living organizations make two completely opposite mistakes when they think about getting into home. They overestimate, I'm going to my left, they overestimate how difficult it is to start a home care business. And at the exact same time, they underestimate what it takes to operate one successfully. And I've seen both. I've seen it from the home care side after spending almost 15 years with Home Instead. And I've seen it from inside senior living. After Home Instead, I went to work for an organization that already had home care built. And it was built into its system. The home care business units operated on the campuses of our CCRCs or life plan communities. But in many ways, the deck was stacked against those business units. Arbitrary rules, processes, and operating expectations were imposed on the home care teams, often by people who did not understand how different the operating model was compared to senior living operations. Then, when the home care business struggled, some senior living executives treated that struggle as proof that home care did not work. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you build a business to fail, then point to the failure as evidence that the business model is flawed, you have not learned the right lesson. You have learned what happens when the operating model is wrong or incorrect or slightly askew. That experience eventually led to the creation of Home Care Advocacy Network. HCAN was built by senior living for senior living. The company was conceived during the Larry Minnick's Leadership Academy while our co-founder, me, Mark Goetz, was serving as vice president of home and community-based services and management and strategy at Asbury Communities. The idea was simple. Senior living organizations should not have to choose between building home care completely on their own or handing their relationships to an outside provider. There is another option. Build home care under your own brand with the right operating model, the right support, and the right accountability behind it. And this conversation is meant to educate. It is meant to be a resource for senior living executives and for other organizations with strong, trusted brands that could scale a home care model. If you are a forward thinker, hello, nice to meet you. We can help. But before I go any further, let me be clear about what I mean when I talk about senior living getting into home care. And, to pause, if you're already sold, you can reach out to me at partner@hcanthrive.com. That's partner@HCANTHRIVE.com. When we were researching the company, we knew that specifically healthcare decision makers, when they looked at their mom and dad and how they felt, they wanted their mom and dad to thrive. And so we created the company Home Care Advocacy Network, and one of our taglines is helping you thrive at home, this idea of thriving. When we work with senior living organizations, we will use a separate tagline, and that's relationship-driven senior care, because we know that ultimately care happens wherever a senior calls home. So I'm talking about our senior living organizations leveraging their own brand, their own reputation, and their own relationships to build a home care business under their own name. Now, I'm not talking about simply allowing an outside home care company to operate on your campus, right? That is a very different strategy. Home care is not automatically right for every senior living community or every senior living system. Okay. The right decision depends on your goals, your market, your leadership capacity, your brand, and the role you want to play in the lives of older adults. And for some, they've already heard now for your leadership capacity. And that's oftentimes one of the excuses we get from organizations. We just don't have the leadership capacity, which means oftentimes it's too difficult to get buy-in from people who are going to row the boat backwards if we get into this boat with you, Mark. But for some organizations, a referral partnership may be the right answer. For others, building a home care business may be a powerful strategic extension of the organization. This is especially true for single-site life plan communities and CCRCs with a strong, trusted brand in the local market. And whether you call your organization a continuing care retirement community or a life plan community, it's fine. I believe you understand what we're saying. An organization that might start out with independent living, helping people move to assisted, helping people move to skilled, and then offering multiple amenities on a campus. These organizations already have families. They have relationships with residents, hospitals, physicians, and community partners. They may have the trust and reputation needed to extend their mission beyond the campus. But that does not mean every organization should simply add home care. And it definitely does not mean home care and home health are the same thing. They are not. Home care generally refers to non-medical support, such as personal care, companionship, homemaking, transportation, help with activities of daily living. It's medication reminders. It's bathing. It is toileting as well. Now, home health is a medical service. It may involve skilled nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, and other clinical services. Home health also comes with far more government regulations, regulatory oversight, documentation, clinical supervision, billing rules, and compliance complexity. Far more. So when I talk about senior living organizations getting into home care, I am not suggesting that they casually launch a home health agency. Home health is a different business with a different operating model, different risks, and a much higher level of regulatory and clinical complexity. And here are some of the biggest things I think senior living gets wrong about home care. On home health, I do think it is a process, and your organization may be right for home health and to scale from home care into home health, into hospice and other lines that really where there's a great synergy. So those are big opportunities for senior living organizations still. But I would say, when I started to swim, I started in the shallow end of the pool, and I'm still not a great swimmer, but I started in the shallow end of the pool and I increased I can finally swim in the deep end, which some of my friends are probably shocked by. I was not a great swimmer. What I'm saying is starting in the shallow end is really what I'm advocating for here. But let's talk about those core things on what senior living gets wrong about home care and start to demystify this conversation. Number one, we're already short-staffed. I hear this all the time. Senior living leaders usually don't say, we don't have enough caregivers. They say, we're already short-staffed. And that is a legitimate concern. But it does not automatically mean you cannot build a home care business. Staffing home care is different from staffing a building. In senior living, you're staffing against a relatively known census and a schedule that has to be covered. Home care is different. You're building your caregiver workforce alongside your client census. You're recruiting people who may want 10 hours, 20 hours, evenings, weekends, or supplemental income. And there are caregivers who actually prefer home care because they want flexibility and the opportunity to care for somebody one-on-one. So don't automatically assume your senior living staffing problem is your home care staffing problem. But don't stop at that conclusion. Ask a harder question. Are we truly short-staffed, or have we built a recruiting process that makes it unnecessarily difficult to hire? That distinction matters. Number two, senior living organizations dramatically underestimate the sophistication required to run home care well. I sometimes call this the Janice down the hall strategy. We've got Janice. She's a great nurse. She understands home care. She can run home care. Or let's have our executive director oversee it. That's not a strategy. Home care is a real business, and you need recruiting, you need scheduling, you need intake, sales, referral development, pricing, billing, quality assurance, caregiver retention, technology, and metrics, right? You need somebody waking up every morning thinking about growing and operating that business. Because if home care is somebody's side of desk responsibility, here's what usually happens. Your senior living organization becomes a really good referral source for somebody else's home care company. If you want to know whether HCAN, our organization, may be a fit for your organization, don't wait until you have a fully formed plan. Start with a conversation about your market, your goals, and your current operating capacity. Number three is the exact opposite. Senior living organizations also overestimate how complicated home care has to be. Do you see the paradox? You don't need another building. You don't need a massive corporate department. You don't need 100 employees before you start. You need the right leader, the right operating system, the right technology, the right financial model, and experienced people coaching that leader. Home care isn't easy, but it can be simple. There's a big difference. And again, that statement applies to non-medical home care. Home health is a different level of complexity because of its clinical, regulatory, and government regulations. The mistake is assuming that because home care can be simple, it can be casual. And it cannot. And because it requires discipline, it does not mean it requires unnecessary bureaucracy. Number 4, senior living executives assume that an outside home care company on campus is automatically a strategic partnership. This is where I think many senior living executives have been lulled to sleep. They think we have comfort keepers on our campus. We have right at home on our campus. Families know they're here. We refer people to them and they refer people to us. Everybody is playing fair behind the scenes, but that is not necessarily what is happening. Right? I used to oversee franchise relationships for the largest provider of home care in the United States, actually in the world. And I can tell you exactly what the strategy was. We were always working to keep people out of senior living. This is my out. I'm going out here to my right. For as long as possible while serving as many people as we could, including people on senior living campuses. That outside home care company was not your friend. It was a competitor with a business model designed to capture the relationship, control the referral, and keep the older adult at home. It's a great model. We have that model in place here at Home Care Advocacy Network. We have our own brand of home care agencies, so we really understand this. But that does not make the company unethical. It means the company was doing exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that many senior living executives never stop to ask whether the partnership was actually aligned with their own strategic interests. If an outside company is serving your residents, your prospects, your families, and your surrounding market, who owns those relationships? Who controls the leads? Who knows when a family first asks for help? Who knows when someone's care needs are increasing? Who knows when that person may eventually need assisted living, memory care, or a life plan community? If the outside provider owns the home care relationship, they may be the first organization to know. And they may be working very hard to make sure that person never becomes your resident. Before you renew or expand an outside provider relationship, ask for a clear answer to one question. Who owns the relationship when the family calls for help? Number 5, they confuse having a home care provider on campus with having a home care strategy. A provider on your campus may be convenient. It may help fill a service gap. It may provide useful support to residents and families, but convenience is not control. A referral arrangement is not ownership. And a company operating on your campus is not the same thing as your organization building a home care business under its own brand. If your organization is simply sending referrals to an outside competitor, you may be giving away the most valuable asset in the entire relationship, the lead. You may be handing over the family relationship. You may be handing over the future resident relationship, and you may be helping another company build market share in the very community you spent decades building. That is not necessarily a partnership. Sometimes it is simply outsourced customer acquisition for somebody else. Doesn't that sound crazy? So take a close look at your current arrangement. How many leads are generated? Who receives them? Who follows up? Who tracks them? Who owns the data? And who benefits when the family's needs change? If you cannot answer those questions, you do not yet have a home care strategy. Number 6, senior living organizations fail to recognize that controlling the leads is strategically essential. Now, you and your community may not be able to serve every older adult who needs help. Even if you build your own home care program, you may not have the caregiver capacity or geographic reach to serve everyone, and that's okay. The goal is not necessarily to provide every hour of care to every person. The goal is to become the organization that controls the relationship and the lead for the benefit of your organization. Right? If a family calls your community because their parent needs help at home, that relationship should not automatically disappear into an outside company's sales funnel. Your organization should be the place that receives the inquiry, understands the need, evaluates the options, and determines how the relationship can best be served. Maybe you provide the care directly. Maybe you refer part of the care to a trusted provider. Maybe you serve the person at home for a period of time and later transition them into your community. Maybe you cannot serve them at all, but you still maintain the relationship and remain the trusted organization guiding the family. After all, you paid for the lead. You already paid to create the phone call, the email. That is very different from simply handing the lead to a competitor and hoping the relationship comes back later. If you want to evaluate whether your organization is currently losing leads, start by mapping the family journey from first inquiry through changing care needs. That exercise alone can reveal where relationships are leaving your organization. Number 7, senior living organizations dramatically underestimate the value of leveraging their own brand. This is the point I want to make from the beginning and throughout the entire conversation. The opportunity is not simply to add another service. The opportunity is to leverage the brand you already own. You've spent 30, 50, 100 years building trust in your community. Families know you. Hospitals know you. Physicians know you. Churches and synagogues know you. Adult children know you. Your brand may already represent trust, safety, dignity, and expertise. And then someone needs help at home and you say, here's the phone number for another company. Think about that. You've spent decades building the relationship and then you're handing that relationship to somebody else. For a single site life plan community or CCRC with a strong local reputation, this can be especially significant. You may already have the brand advantage that outside home care companies spend millions of dollars trying to create. Why would you automatically give that advantage away? The first step is not launching a program. The first step is determining whether your brand has enough trust and reach to support. That is exactly the kind of question we help senior living organizations answer. And this applies beyond senior living as well. If you lead another organization with a strong, trusted brand, whether in healthcare, community services, faith-based care, or another field, you may already have the relationships, credibility, and market presence needed to scale a home care model. We're talking with a few of them right now in the hospice world. The question is whether you are using that brand to serve people where they live. Number 8, they treat home care like a department instead of a business line. Give it leadership, give it a P&L, give it revenue goals. Give it recruiting goals and accountability. Give the person running it enough authority to actually run it. If you're serious about building a home care business, treat it like a business and then make sure it is built under your brand, not hidden behind somebody else's. If your organization is not prepared to give home care a leader, a budget, measurable goals, and decision-making authority, be honest about that before you begin. Number 9, senior living leaders defend the status quo until somebody else proves what's possible. This is one of the biggest barriers I see. Senior living leaders will fight, and fight to preserve the status quo. They'll say, we've always done it this way. Let's stick to what we know. We're already short-staffed. That's not really our business. Our executive directors don't have capacity. Our residents aren't asking for it. We already have a community partner. We don't know if it will work. And sometimes those concerns are valid. But often the real issue is that nobody wants to be the first organization to step out and try something different. And then another organization does it. They build the program, they create the systems, they leverage their own brand, and then they control the leads. And then oftentimes leaders will say, well, they could do it because that's a really good market. I've heard that one literally a million times. And if you've worked in franchising and scalable home care or any kind of scalable business model, you've heard victims say, you don't understand, Mark, it's different here or it's different there. However, some show that it can be done and they demonstrate that residents, families, and the broader community value the service. And suddenly the conversation changes. What seemed impossible becomes obvious. What seemed risky becomes necessary, and what seemed outside the mission becomes strategic. The senior living field often needs an example before it is willing to believe something is possible. But somebody has to be willing to go first inside the organization. And if your organization is waiting for someone else to prove the model, ask whether you're protecting the organization or simply protecting the status quo. We have organizations that are proving that the model works and have proved that the model works. And if you are leading an organization with a strong brand, ask whether your reluctance is protecting your mission or allowing someone else to build the relationship with the people you could be serving. Number 10, they ask whether the program is meeting financial expectations before asking how the program was built. I saw this firsthand in a discussion with a leader inside of the senior living strata over the past few months. He asked one of my clients, is the program meeting revenue and financial expectations? Because oftentimes these programs fall short. That comment struck me as a somewhat ridiculous way to evaluate the opportunity, to be honest. Not because financial performance doesn't matter, it absolutely does. But a home care program does not succeed or fail in a vacuum. It depends on how the program was set up, how it's run, whether it was built for scalability, how it was started, who leads it, right? What systems support it, how recruiting is handled, how referrals are developed, and whether the organization controls the leads. Another thing, whether the organization leverages its own brand as well, whether the organization treats it as a real business or as an additional responsibility for someone who is already overwhelmed. To simply say these programs often fall short is to grossly underestimate the variables that determine performance, and then use that assumption to quickly discount the entire strategy. If a program was poorly designed, poorly led, underfunded, disconnected from the organization's goals, or never built to scale, then yes, it may fall short. But that does not prove home care is a bad idea. It proves that the program was not set up correct. So the better questions, in our opinion, are, was there a clear strategy? Was there a qualified leader? Was the financial model realistic? Was the program designed for scale? Were the right systems in place? Was the organization committed to operating it as a business? Was the organization leveraging its own brand? Was it controlling the leads? And was there experienced support behind the person leading it? That's really where Home Care Advocacy Network comes in. And through the setup and through the leadership of the program. So you really can't evaluate the potential of home care by looking only at poorly designed examples. Before you judge the opportunity, have someone evaluate the design of the program itself. If you want an outside perspective, HCAN can help you separate a flawed model from a flawed market. We'd love the opportunity to talk about that. Number 11 is senior living organizations make mistakes, and mistakes have a cost. Let me be clear, senior living organizations are going to make mistakes. Every organization does, every executive team does. Every new initiative involves some uncertainty, and not every idea will work exactly as planned. The goal is not to eliminate every mistake. The goal is to learn quickly, limit unnecessary waste, and make sure the organization is investing in ideas that move the mission, the brand, and the business forward. Because wasted money is not the goal, and I have personally seen an enormous amount of waste in senior living and other organizations, not necessarily because leaders were careless, but because organizations invested non-productive initiatives that did not create momentum, strengthen the brand, improve the resident experience, or build a meaningful strategic advantage. And to be fair, I've probably seen more money wasted in home care organizations than I would ever care to admit. Money was spent, time was consumed, staff attention was diverted, meetings were held, consultants were engaged, programs were announced, and yet nothing really moved. So that kind of waste is especially frustrating because it often gets tolerated as the cost of doing business, while a more strategic opportunity like home care is dismissed because someone is afraid it might not work. So there is a difference between making a thoughtful mistake while pursuing a meaningful strategy and spending money on an initiative that was never designed to produce a clear result. There is also a difference between a program failing because the market rejected it and a program failing because the organization never gave it the leadership, authority, systems, or support it needed. If you invest in home care and the model does not work, that deserves an honest evaluation. But the evaluation should ask, did we choose the right market? The right market? Did we define the business correctly? Did we build under our own brand? Did we control the leads? Did we recruit effectively? Did we give the program a qualified leader? Did we provide enough time and support? Or, did we measure the right outcomes? Another question is, did we adapt when the market gave us feedback, especially around recruiting caregivers? Or did we spend money on a program that was disconnected from our strategy and then blame home care for the result? The point is not that every home care investment will succeed. The point is that senior living should be much more disciplined about where it spends money, time, and leadership attention. If you're going to make a mistake, make it while pursuing something that can expand your mission, strengthen your brand, deepen community relationships, and create a meaningful strategic advantage. Do not confuse the fear of wasting money on a well-designed initiative with the acceptance of waste on initiatives that never had a clear path to move the organization forward. Before approving any new initiative, require a clear connection to your mission, brand, market position, and measurable outcomes and long-term strategy. If that connection is missing, the organization may be spending money simply because it has not decided what it is trying to accomplish. Number 12, senior living organizations worry that home care will hurt occupancy. I think this one is completely backwards. The assumption is if we help people stay home, aren't we delaying their move into senior living? Valid question, maybe in an individual circumstance, but let's look at the big picture. There are thousands of older adults in your market who aren't ready to move into your community today, right? Some may never move into your community. You'd call that the middle market, maybe. Why wouldn't you serve them? And for the people who eventually do need senior living, wouldn't you rather have a relationship with them and their family for 2 or 3 or 5 years before that decision? The real question isn't, will home care keep somebody out of your building? The question is, who is going to own that relationship before they ever need our building? If you refer that person to an outside home care company, the answer may be your competitor. If you build the relationship under your own brand, the answer can be your organization. If occupancy is your concern, model the entire relationship, not just the timing of a move-in. Look at earlier engagement, referral development, future transitions, brand reach, and the value of serving people who may never become residents. Number 13, senior living organizations define their market by their real estate. If you have 300 units, you're constantly thinking about those 300 units. Occupancy, occupancy, occupancy. But your market isn't 300 people. There may be tens of thousands of older adults surrounding your community. Home care allows you to take the brand, reputation, mission, and expertise you've spent decades building and extend it beyond your walls. It allows you to serve people who may never move into your community, and it allows you to build relationships before a move is even being considered. And it allows your organization, not an outside competitor, to become the trusted point of contact for older adults and their families. Your campus is a location. It is not the limit of your market and brand. Ask your team to define the number of older adults and families within your service area, not just the number of units on your property. That is where the larger opportunity begins. And that's also where Home Care Advocacy Network can be of great assistance and help. We put each one of our partners first through a very rigid market study, so we understand what your potential to serve is currently as you look at the walls of your community, what those numbers look like. And then we take a look at the outside market. How many of those folks in the outside market are maybe at home living with early onset dementia or disability, or any number of opportunities that the senior living organization has to serve a broader market. So we're on to point 14. They confuse home care with home health. So this is one of the most important distinctions. Some senior living executives hear home care and immediately think about Medicare certified home health agencies, skilled nursing, therapy, clinical documentation, and government reimbursement. That is not necessarily what we're talking about. A non-medical, give the term, but it is an industry term in home care. A non-medical home care business may provide assistance with bathing, dressing assistance, toileting, meals, medication reminders, light housekeeping, companionship, and other daily needs. Home health provides medical care in the home. Home health has significantly more regulatory requirements clinical oversight, documentation, compliance obligations, and reimbursement complexity. It is still a great business model, and there is still a great need for home health, and it can be a valuable service, but is not a simple extension of a senior living operation. If your goal is to extend your brand and serve older adults earlier, non-medical home care may be the more accessible place to start. In states like Texas, they call this a personal assistant service, a PAS program. They call it different things in different regions of the country, but you get what I'm saying. So before you move forward, define the business you are actually considering. If your team is using home care and home health interchangeably, stop and clarify the model before discussing staffing, finances, or implementation. Number 15, they try to run home care recruiting through systems that weren't designed for home care. This is where I saw the deck stacked against home care firsthand. Yes, senior living organizations have rules to follow. We all do, and compliance matters. Let me say that. Yes, background checks, documentation, training, and safety requirements are essential. But some organizations have recruiting processes that take 20 to 45 days to bring in a new employee. Home care and the home care industry often needs to move in 7 to 10 days. That difference can determine whether you can accept a client, fulfill a schedule, and grow, or whether the opportunity goes to somebody else. So you have to ask, do we have arbitrary rules in place that make it harder for us to recruit? Keep that word in mind, arbitrary. Are we applying building-based processes to a business that operates in the community? Are we requiring steps that add time without adding safety or quality? And are we measuring compliance or simply measuring how well people avoid making decisions? Perhaps the most uncomfortable question is this: do our people actually care about building this business, or have they been trained to play it safe and blame? That's a tough one. If the people responsible for home care are rewarded for avoiding risk, protecting their existing workload, and explaining why something cannot be done, the business will not grow. That is not a caregiver problem. That is a leadership and operating model problem, possibly a political problem, more than likely. Home care recruiting has to move. You should almost always be recruiting. You need the ability to bring people into the organization as your home care census grows. If every caregiver requires a long corporate process before you can even interview or onboard them, you're going to struggle. The home care operator needs enough control over recruiting to build the workforce alongside the business. Review your recruiting timeline. We can help you do this from application to first shift. Then separate the requirements that protect residents and clients from the requirements that simply reflect how your organization has always operated. There is a huge, huge difference. Number 16, they often assume the same senior living structure will work in every market. A CCRC, or a life plan community, often has a basic structure that never changes from town to town. The same departments, the same approval paths, the same staffing assumptions, the same operating rules, the same expectations for how decisions are made. But the market changes. The labor pool changes, the referral sources change, and the competitive environment changes. The needs of older adults certainly change, and home care operates in the community, not just on the campus. So when you take the same structure from one town to another and expect a different result, the definition of insanity starts to apply. Doing the same thing over and over while expecting different results. A home care business may need a different structure, different decision rights, different recruiting practices, different marketing, and different measures of success. That does not mean abandoning the values or standards of senior living. It means adapting the operating model to the business you are actually trying to build. If your home care program is struggling, do not automatically add more meetings, more approvals, or more rules. First, ask whether the structure itself is appropriate for the market and the business. Number 17, organizations calculate the risk of doing it, but rarely calculate the risk of not doing it. That one hits hard. This is especially important for boards. Everybody wants to know, and rightfully so, how much will this cost? What happens if it doesn't work? What's our liability? Those are good questions. But somebody also needs to ask, what happens if we do nothing? Who serves those seniors? Who develops the relationship with those adult children? And who gets the referral from the hospital? Who provides care on your campus? Who gets the revenue? Who controls the lead? And 5 years from now, who owns the relationship with your future residents? And I would say the most underrated, underestimated thing that senior living organizations miss when it comes to home care is that you have the opportunity to build a labor-centric model of caregivers who love then to refer not just to the home care business, but to your senior living operation. When you have a caregiver working for you under your brand, they have two loves naturally. They love the home care business, but they're also highly closely affiliated with your senior living organization. And what we have seen when organizations get to over 50 caregivers, or as we call them, care advocates who are serving seniors, your number one referral source for your home care business becomes internal. It's your employees who are working for you, who have a great experience with you, and they say, you know what, if you're not ready to move, why don't you try Whitehorse Village Home Care? I'm a caregiver with Whitehorse Village Home Care. And by the way, when your mom is ready then to move, she can maybe move to Whitehorse Village. It's a beautiful thing. Caregivers are one of your number one mouthpieces that is missing to helping you grow your senior living brand, but especially they're the number one source for growing your home care brand. 5 years from now, who owns the relationship with your future residents? If you continue referring people to outside competitors, you may be helping those competitors build the relationships that should belong to your organization. Doing nothing is also a strategy, and it has a cost. Put the cost of inaction on the same page as the cost of action. Compare lost leads, lost relationships, lost revenue, reduced market reach, and future competitive positioning, not just startup expenses. Number 18, sometimes today's leadership team unintentionally prevents tomorrow's strategy. A senior living CEO says, we should explore home care. And immediately they hear, we're already stretched. We can't hire. Our executive directors don't have capacity. We just can't add one more thing. We already have a provider on campus. And all of that may be true. But that's not necessarily an argument against home care. That's an argument against making your existing team run home care off the side of their desks. Build the structure correctly, give the business its own leadership, give it the systems it needs, and then make sure the program is designed to leverage your brand and control the relationship, not simply to create another referral channel for an outside company, which is what most senior living companies do. If your current team does not have capacity, do not pretend they do. Identify the leader, support, and authority the business actually requires. And again, that's what Home Care Advocacy Network does. We help come alongside you to make all those decisions, to structure the business, and then to help you operate it, and then coach your leaders into greater success. Number 19, mission-driven organizations sometimes worry that home care is mission drift. And I would argue the opposite. If your mission is serving older adults, why should that mission start only at your property line? Why should somebody have to move into one of your apartments before they get access to your organization? Home care can actually be and is mission expansion. You are serving people earlier, you're serving more people, and you're helping families who may never have had access to your organization otherwise, the middle market. But mission expansion still requires strategic discipline. The question is not simply, can we do this? The question is, does this support our mission and our goals, and can we operate it well? And if you do it, are you building it under your own brand or simply helping another company serve your market? And again, oddly self-serving, this is why Home Care Advocacy Network initially began. It's a business that's built for senior living by senior living. This was built during the core leadership academy to the largest trade organization for 501c3 nonprofit senior living, the Larry Minnick's Leadership Academy, built for senior living by senior living because we know how valuable it can be, but also how challenging it can be. If your mission is community impact, measure the number of older adults and families you can serve, not only the number of residents living on your campus. And that is a big part of the market studies that we provide to senior living organizations throughout the US. And number 20, Senior living executives think they have two choices: build home care completely on their own. Let's just have the executive directors do it. Not a great idea. Or refer it out to somebody else. There's a third option. Build your home care business under your brand, but don't build the operating model from scratch. There are sophisticated home care organizations that have spent years, and in some cases, enormous amounts of capital, hundreds of millions of dollars, figuring out recruiting, technology, scheduling, marketing, operations, and growth. You don't have to reinvent all of that, but you do need to own the strategy, and we are the organization to help you do that. You need to own the brand. You need to control the leads. You need to decide how the relationship is managed, and you need to make sure the operating model supports the long-term goals of your organization. That's really the work we do at Home Care Advocacy Network. HCAN was built by senior living for senior living because we understand both sides of the equation. We understand the mission, governance, compliance expectations, and culture of senior living. And we understand the speed, staffing realities, sales process, operating discipline, and market demands of home care. We help senior living organizations evaluate whether home care fits their goals, and when it does, build home care as a real scalable business line under their own brand with the systems, coaching, operating support, and experience behind the person leading it. We also help organizations with strong brands outside traditional senior living evaluate whether they can extend that brand into home care. Because this is not only about adding a service, it is about scaling trust. It is about meeting people where they live. It is about creating a relationship earlier. And it is about building a model that can serve more people without forcing your organization to reinvent every system from scratch. We help organizations avoid the trap of simply placing an outside provider on campus and calling that a strategy. We help identify the rules that protect quality and safety and the rules that simply slow the business down. We help organizations determine whether their recruiting process is built for home care, and we help leaders understand whether their structure supports growth or quietly guarantees failure. We help organizations distinguish between product investment and waste, between spending that builds the brand and spending that merely creates activity without progress. Because the question is not just whether somebody can provide quick care. The question is, who owns the relationship? Who controls the lead? Who benefits from the revenue? Who is employing your future staff? That can happen right now. You can be employing far more caregivers that end up with great brand loyalty through your home care program that eventually become employees of the larger brand, of the mothership. And who is positioned to serve that older adult as their needs change over time? If you are wondering whether HCAN could help, let's start with a conversation. We can look at your current model, your market, your recruiting process, your referral relationships, and most importantly, your goals. You do not need to have all the answers before you reach out. In fact, we'd prefer that you not try. Just give us a ring. And if you're a forward thinker with a strong brand, a meaningful mission, and a desire to serve more people, hello, nice to meet you. We can help you explore what is possible. And here's the bigger point. Senior living and aging services is changing. The question isn't simply how many people can live inside your buildings. The question is, how many older adults can your organization serve? How early can you build that relationship? And how far can your brand reach? How many leads can you keep within your organization, and how quickly can you respond when a family asks for help? How much more impact can your mission have if it doesn't stop at the edge of your campus? That is going to help create a more age-ready USA, and Home Care Advocacy Network can be a big part of that. If you're a senior living executive thinking about this, I'd love to talk with you, not a hard sell. And if you need another organization with a strong brand that could scale a home care model, I'd love to talk with you too. Not because home care is automatically right for every organization, and not because every organization should pursue home care, but because every senior living organization and every strong, trusted brand serving older adults should at least be asking the right questions. What are our goals? What role do we want to play in the community? Does our brand give us a meaningful advantage? Do we have the leadership capacity to operate this as a business? Can we get to a greater level of leadership capacity to operate this as a business? That's an even more important question. Are we talking about non-medical home care or regulated home health? Are we evaluating the opportunity based on a well-designed program or dismissing it because poorly designed programs sometimes fail and have failed quite miserably? Are we simply referring leads to outside competitors? Who controls the relationship with the family, right? Who benefits when an older adult needs more support? And are our recruiting processes and rules protecting quality, or are they creating unnecessary barriers? How much of your recruiting process right now is arbitrary? Do our people actually care about building this business, or have they been built to play safe and to blame? Is our structure designed for the market we are serving? And are we doing the same thing over and over while expecting a different result? Are we spending money on initiatives that create measurable progress, or simply creating activity that makes us feel busy? For some organizations, the answer may be to build. For others, it may be to partner. For others, it may be to wait. But the decision should be strategic, not based on the assumption that home care is either too easy to matter or too difficult to pursue. And it should not be based on the performance of programs that were never properly designed, led, or built for scale. It should also not be based on a fear of making any mistakes while continuing to tolerate waste on initiatives that do not move the brand, mission, or organization forward. Most importantly, don't assume that an outside home care company is automatically your friend simply because it operates on your campus. Understand its business model, understand what it is trying to accomplish, understand who controls the relationship, understand whether your own operating rules are helping or hurting the business, and understand what you are spending, what you are learning, and whether the investment is creating meaningful progress. And then decide whether that strategy serves your organization or theirs. If you are ready to explore the question, let's have a discussion. Your market has dynamics that need to be considered. Every senior living system is different, and we take that into account. We have an agreement structure similar to the entry point a transitional executive might use when buying a home care franchise. But the model is designed around your organization, your brand, your goals, and your market. If you already have a home care program, but question its survivability, scalability, or long-term potential, let's talk about that too. You can email me at partner@hcanthrive.com. That's HCANTHRIV.com. Or you can call me or text me at 402-880-4507. You do not need to have a fully formed plan before reaching out. We can start by discussing your market, getting to know each other, talk about your current program, your goals, operating model. Let's determine whether home care belongs in your strategy. And if it does, how to build it correctly. Are we building an organization designed around where older adults live today, or only around where we hope they'll live? And are we leveraging our own brand to serve them, or handing our relationships to somebody else? The first step is a conversation.